Hey everybody, Livingston here. Today we're jumping into another episode of The Twilight Zone. This time it's Season 2, Episode 27, The Mind and the Matter. Came out May 11th, 1961, and another episode I haven't actually sat down and watched before. But before we do jump into the episode, let's jump into your comments and see what you had to say about last week's episode, Shadow Play. Antonio Dragon 88 says, Shadow Play is definitely a top 10 episode. I got to agree with you there. I'm not sure yet because I haven't hit the end of the series, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be a top 10 just because it's a very cerebral kind of show. I definitely enjoyed it. I think it might actually hit my top 5 for the end of the season podcast that I typically do at the end of every season. And so far, we only have about 3 episodes left before we actually get there. Looking forward to jumping into that and seeing if it actually ends up in my top 5 and what actually ends up in my bottom 5 for the season as well. But thanks for the comment. Blue Black Purple says, Dennis Weaver does a great job showing the torment of a person reliving a nightmare over and over again. Dennis Weaver is probably best known for playing the character Chester in the TV western Gunsmoke. He also starred in his own television show McCloud during the 1970s. Yeah, I've never actually watched a lot of the stuff that he's been in. I haven't seen Gunsmoke. I haven't seen McCloud. I might need to sit down and watch those at some point in the future. I do know about the shows. I do know what Gunsmoke is for sure because I've heard about it all and throughout my life through either my parents or my grandparents or aunts or uncles. Just a lot of the people that kind of grew up with the show. You don't hear about it too much among people that are like born in my era and beyond. But yeah, it's just one of those shows that I've missed. But I do know Dennis Weaver from the movie Duel, which was a really great film and one of Spielberg's first films that he's ever done in the early 70s. I think his actual first film was a Goldie Hawn movie called Sugarland Express. One of his slower films, but Duel, really great movie. It's almost like Jaws, but it takes place on the highway, and the shark is actually a Mack truck. So go check that out if you haven't. Danette and Anthony says, Hi, first time commenting. I think what this episode is commenting on is also the idea that each of us only absolutely knows that we exist. So the question is, do any of you exist? What our main character is in the context of this episode is the lathe of heaven. He is not only surrounded and suffering through his nightmares, he is also dreaming all of us, characters in the story, actors in the show, and perhaps even those of us watching on television. One of the more mind-bending episodes. Definitely a very mind-bending episode. I definitely enjoyed it. It was one of those things that I had to think about once I stepped away from the computer and actually gave it some thought. And yeah, very much something that is very scary, where somebody could possibly or potentially be your creator in a way. And it's actually true in the end of this story. The only problem is the guy who's doing the creating is actually stuck in his own hell, having to relive his ending, basically. And whether it's a dream or not, whether he's a decent human being outside of whatever reality this was in this episode, it was one that really made you think. And I didn't touch on that too much in the last episode when I had my afterthoughts, but I definitely think it's one of the more mind-bending episodes, as you put it, and I'm looking forward to jumping forward into the Twilight Zone, and hopefully there's more episodes like this where it kind of makes you think about what did I just watch. But thanks for the comment, and keep on commenting. I do appreciate when you guys do jump in and throw in what your thoughts are on this. Golansky says, For me, this is one of the best episodes to show someone who wants to get a good idea of what the series is all about. There are many more episodes that work the same way for new viewers, of course, but this is so rewatchable that it has to go near the top of the list. Prime Twilight Zone for sure. Yeah, this is definitely one of the greater shows that I've seen in the Twilight Zone. It kind of coincides with what was going on with Season 1. I think Season 1 was a much stronger season since we're almost at the end of Season 2. But there has been some strong episodes in Season 2. I just think there was way more of them in Season 1. Let me know, comment below what you think. Was it Season 1 or Season 2 that tops your list when it comes to the best Twilight Zone episodes when you're kind of comparing both seasons? And what was your favorite season altogether? Was it any of the seasons we've watched, or is it the future seasons that I'm about to jump into? Let me know. But P Sparks 3419 says, Livingston, I always look forward to your commentaries. You would make Rod Serling proud. Keep up the great work. Hey, thanks, P Sparks. I definitely appreciate the comment, and I will keep on trucking. And I hope Rod Serling would appreciate me looking at the Twilight Zone and kind of bringing attention back to it after almost 70 years being out. It's kind of crazy. It's almost that old. Robert Jewell 9727 says, it's funny your comments regarding my score of meh for the silence you replied. I hope you enjoyed the next episode, and Shadowplay is definitely in my top 10, if not my favorite episode. I'm not sure it might the first in these types of Jacob's Ladder Groundhog Day stories, perfectly acted by Dennis Weaver and directed with a frightening feel of claustrophobia and inevitability, using close-ups and Dutch angles. This one gets an A+ for me. Great reaction as usual. Hey, thanks, Robert. And yeah, definitely a great episode. Not sure where it's going to rank so far for me in season 2, but I enjoyed every aspect of this show when it came to the story and making you think about it and wondering what's actually going on. And it's wonderful when Twilight Zone can actually do that for us. The problem is that I've seen a lot of things past Twilight Zone, so sometimes I can kind of guess what's going to happen due to the fact that I've seen things that are very similar to it that end up being something that's based on episodes of the Twilight Zone. And it's nice to see that I'm seeing like a original take of those stories that I didn't get to see beforehand, but nice to see where a lot of the stories I like come from. Jonathan Stein says, this has always struck me as one of the most existentially horrifying episodes of the whole series, and I'm happy to say that the remake from the 80s series is just as good. Well, it's good to know that there is a remake of this and I can actually compare the episodes when I do watch the 80s version of the Twilight Zone. And looking forward to jumping into the Twilight Zone even further. I think there's an early 2000s, I'm pretty sure of that one. And I also know that there is one that Jordan Peele did in the late 2010s. So we're going to be in Twilight Zone for quite a while here on this channel. And it's definitely a horrifying episode. Just in thinking that you can potentially be stuck in jail and reliving dying in an electric chair over and over and over and over again. Whether he gets numb to it or not, who knows? Or if he still stays in the dream. Yeah, I don't know. But thanks for the comment. The Cosmic Kid 2562 says, this episode is reminiscent of the episode Judgment Night, wherein the German U-boat captain has to relive the attack on the vessel he sunk himself over and over again as a kind of hellish punishment. Yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. I believe it was in my top 5 of the season 1. And again, one of the same kind of episodes is possibly going to end up in my top 5 again, but loved that episode as well, and it really was very reminiscent of what was going on. But at least in this one, you kind of know from the beginning that he's reliving it, because there's very subtle clues of him like saying the words under his breath while he's being sentenced. And in the Judgment Night, the guy, we really didn't understand what was going on until the very end of the episode, where he all of a sudden had to relive what was going on, and he saw himself out there looking back at the boat before he was about to sink it. Thanks for the comment. RSEFX says, I don't recall Jacob's Ladder being about something repeating the same way endlessly. That film is more like an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge than this episode. This is more like Groundhog's Day, as you do mention at one point. Creepy, nightmarish mood. There are 3 episodes of Twilight Zone I recall with themes and setups, something like this, as well as Time Element, which served as a kind of pilot impetus for creating the series to begin with. Now, this is what they say, the actual filmmakers of the movie state about Jacob's Ladder, stating that the horror of the movie would be in the revelation that hope is hell's final torment, that life is a dream that ends over and over with the final truth, that life was never real, that we all are creatures trapped in eternal suffering and damnation. Which is what I'm basically stating. I know it's not quite like Groundhog Day where he's living over and over and over again, but he is in his own personal hell where there is no escape, and that's what I sort of meant by Jacob's Ladder. But thanks for the comment, definitely appreciated it. Sean Garrett says, can remember buying a Laserdisc box set of Twilight Zone and really enjoyed this episode, God bless, from Tipton in the Black Country in England. Hey, thanks for the comment. Definitely appreciated it. Yeah, I'm glad that a lot of people comment in, and they always tell me certain things about their life, kind of stating the first time they bought something or the first time they watched the episode. And there's so many people who have different experiences with this actual show. Just the way they watched it, the time of their life that they actually watched it as well. Had some people comment stating that they marathoned it just a few years ago as an adult, Or some people look at it in a very different aspect and watched it as a child, and it made a much greater mark on them. Usually when you watch things as a kid, it kind of sticks with you up until adulthood, and you kind of look back on it a lot more fondly than you would if you just watched it as an adult. But that's usually what happens. David E123 says, the comment about the monsters are due on Maple Street seemed to imply there was an actor in common with this episode, but there isn't one except for a minor actor who played the ice cream vendor in Maple Street, the leader of the neighborhood. In that episode would probably be Claude Atkins. Although Jack Weston was the leader of the mob, they weren't in this one. Yeah, maybe they meant the ice cream guy. I'm not sure, but who knows? It is what it is. But thanks for the comment and correcting that. Bash Arbad his at Tav 840. I butchered that. I'm sorry. But anyways, very disturbing and unique episode because it kind of cuts to the core of the human fear about reality, consciousness, etc. Assuming this is a dream, as that seems the most supported by what happens in this episode, the inhabitants of the dream world all act like everything is natural and normal to them until he plants the seed of doubt and questioning in some of them. And to this day, even with all the advances in medical science, we still don't really understand what dreams are. Who is to say while awake we aren't a part of some unseen entity dream in a hologram, a simulation, and so on? The possibilities are endless. Yeah, I've heard of this theory several times that we are possibly in a simulation. There are some weird things going on today that make people believe that, and maybe we're glitching, and maybe the computer's about to crash, and we're all about to just vanish into obscurity. Who the heck knows? I know in the scheme of things that life is just, it's fleeting and it's short, and in the long run, we're only here for a short period of time, and whether or not it's real, we should just try to have fun with it regardless, and just enjoy life as much as possible. That's the only advice I can probably give to anybody who doesn't know exactly what is going on in our reality, whether it's real or not, whether it's all meant for something. Who the heck knows? I just don't have the time to sit around and think about it too much. So when I do, I start to realize that, oh no, I only have maybe so many decades left before I'm no longer here, and what's beyond that, and start thinking about my own realities. Who the heck knows? All I know is I'm just going to keep watching Twilight Zone and continue on. But thanks for the comment. When this scribe 1229 says, this episode depicts a type of repeating dream that a person in a coma may have. I read this somewhere long ago, coma survivors' testimonials. Now, much more recently here on YouTube, as lucid dreaming is much more mainstream, many seasoned lucid dreamers report that while lucid dreaming, if they tell the inhabitants of their dream that they are aware of dreaming, like in this episode, the dream characters suddenly take on a very aggressive attitude and tell the dreamer to leave. If the dreamer does nothing or tries to argue, the dream characters even go so far as to shut down the dreams themselves. Then the lucid dreamers are basically booted out of their sleep, but what the dreamers perceive to be being manifesting their own separate consciousness and will. A few who have experienced this say the next time they will fight back just to see what happens next. Are they setting themselves up for a real-life Twilight Zone moment? To be continued. Yeah, who the heck knows? I mean, there have been some instances where I have understood that I was in a dream in the moment that I was dreaming, and it didn't really last long after I realized that I was dreaming, and it's been a long time since I've actually done that. But it almost sounds like Inception, where once the dream figures out that you're not supposed to be there, they kick you out, almost like security. I mean, I'm sure a lot of that comes from some kind of reality that Nolan read about in some science magazine or book, but it's interesting to think about that you can potentially be inside your own head and that you can have an entire world living within it. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for the comment. Gene Everett 7855 says, I love this episode, just something about it. In my top 5 for sure. Next week's is a classic also. Thumbs up. Shadow Play seemed like it was missing some scenes or something, like when Adam Grant tells DA to check over and the dinner will change well at end scene, and then the DA and his press buddy, who's drunk and freaking out, never talk about it. I think the script may had more, but it didn't fit the episode runtime. Also, the actor playing Adam Grant is great. I got a Christian Bale vibe from him, just seemed like a great performance, and I wish the guy was in more Twilight Zone episodes like Jack Klugman, who was in 4 episodes. Love these reactions. Cheers. Hey, Gene, thanks a lot. Really do appreciate the comment. And yeah, there probably was some things cut out of the script, and you were probably very much right about them having to just kind of fit it in that runtime. But I think it still flowed fairly well, and I don't think we needed to jump into those scenes if it really wasn't needed to tell the story or push it forward. But hey, who knows what happened? But I'm pretty sure a lot of that probably did happen, where they had to edit out a lot of things. Oh yeah, and the actor who played Adam Grant, I definitely enjoyed him. I can definitely see Christian Bale in that. But there's so many different actors that are ahead. It's going to be interesting to see different actors. I like when they kind of have different people come in and try out the different roles. And it's also nice to see a familiar face jumping back into a different role. And Jack Klugman, he's definitely a great addition to the Twilight Zone family. But it's also nice to see new faces as well and see what other people can actually bring to the table. Akira Kurosawa says, one of the worst corners to be in within the Twilight Zone. Definitely a dark episode, my friend. Definitely very dark indeed. CJ Max says, the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still 2008 is horrible. They need to stop trying to remake all these classic films and come up with new ideas. The original The Twilight Zone is just unbeatable. Rod Serling's intros and outros are a lot of its charm, but the stories are usually good enough to stand on their own. Thanks for the video. Hey, no problem. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Now, I used to say you shouldn't remake movies, really good movies. You should just remake the bad ones that were great concepts, good scripts, but executed poorly. I always thought that's what they should do. They shouldn't remake the good ones because they're good. They're already wonderful movies. They're classics. That's what's the sense in remaking it, right? But then I kind of go back and look at some of my favorite films, and a lot of my favorite movies are movies that were remakes of movies that came 30 or 40 years prior. You have The Thing, 1982, and that was actually remade from a movie called The Thing from Another World that was a 1950s film. But I love the Kurt Russell movie, and if it wasn't a remake, if it wasn't remade from that movie, I wouldn't have that film now. So you also have Ocean's 11. The remake has George Clooney, Brad Pitt. The original one has Frank Sinatra in the Rat Pack. It's a good movie, but they remade it, gave it a different style, gave it a different look, has a different spin on the story, gives you something different. You also have The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. It was a remake, and ended up, it was a cheesy 50s remake. It wasn't really that great of a movie. I'm sure it was for its time, but now it's kind of dated. But then you have 30 years later, Jeff Goldblum, with Gina Davis, and he ends up becoming almost like a monster movie icon of the 80s. It ended up being a really cool concept and something that was just much different than what came before it. You also have Cape Fear with Robert De Niro as the bad guy, and it was remade from, I'm trying to remember the name of the actual movie. It was like a 50s movie of the same, in 1962, not 50s. But there's a lot of examples of great movies that have other great movies made off of it and gives it a different spin. So that's where I kind of sit with it. As long as they take it and craft something different and leave the original alone in a way. They kind of did that with Psycho. Psycho was then remade in 1998 with Vince Vaughn, and they shot it shot for shot with what the original was. It was basically a remake with everything, with the same script. And I don't think that's what they should do with any remakes. They should just give it its own DNA. And that's what I feel about it. But anyways, let me know, comment below what you feel about that. And let's jump into the show.
Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Going to work. Gonna be a great day. Very happy-go-lucky.
Mr. Archibald Beechcroft, a product of the population explosion.
Very busy. Fast paces of the city.
And in just a moment, our hero will begin his personal one-man rebellion against the mechanics of his age in the Twilight Zone.
I didn't notice where I was going.
Precisely your problem.
Jeez. Sour.
Feeling ill, Beechcroft?
Slightly.
You're not looking too well.
Thanks, bud.
You know, keeping yourself fit is not only a personal obligation, Beechcroft. Part of your responsibility to your job and to the firm that employs you.
Mind your own business.
Lots of milk, fresh vegetables. Oh, you can't beat those greens for vitamins. I'd even have them for breakfast.
Yeah, I just take the eggs and sausage.
You're not drinking, are you, Beechcroft?
I don't drink, Mr. Rogers.
Well then, are you watching your diet?
You ought to try coming to work on the subway at 7:30 every morning. Jamming into an elevator like part of a herd of cattle. Always get jostled, always get shoved, always get pushed around. When I can achieve that millennium, that absolute perfection that comes with solitude, if I had my way, I'd eliminate the people. I mean, cross them off, decimate them, and there'd only be one man left.
Why, you are quite mad, Beechcroft. Do you know that?
He's having a day. You should have kept your mouth shut.
Mr. Beechcroft! Mr. Beechcroft!
Sit with us. We're your friends.
When I spilled coffee on your coat, I'm really very sorry about that, Mr. Beechcroft.
Should be.
A friend of mine works in a bookstore around the corner. I got you this.
A book? You shouldn't have.
You can achieve the ultimate power of concentration.
Ah.
This friend of mine is he says, to the best of his knowledge, it's the only one in existence. I've seen my friend cause a woman to purchase a chartreuse and orange scarf.
Thank you so much for the book, Henry. I am indebted.
Chapter 3, that's the one on initial phenomena of intense concentration.
I'll look into it. This seems like a more lighthearted episode compared to the last two episodes. It's been kind of dark this season. Okay, what's this book gonna make him do? At least it's not like over there, and I think it was China, where I seen video of people being pushed into the train cars as if they're being stuffed into a box after you like unpacked it, just to get the doors closed. It's pretty crazy. It's like, just wait for the next train.
Concentration is the most underrated, unknown power in the universe.
Yep.
Person could move mountains. No limit at all.
I could just concentrate hard enough to get rid of the...
Get rid of what? People?
Concentrate on getting rid of the people.
Mr. Beechcroft, the rent is due, Mr. Beechcroft.
Uh-oh. If you concentrate hard enough, maybe you can think up the rent.
Mr. Beechcroft!
Disappear. Be extinct.
Mr. Beechcroft!
Go away.
I wouldn't say be extinct. It's mean. Oh, no. So she's just, like, gone from existence? 'Cause that's horrible. Good. I'll have to pay rent. It's a heck of a power, though.
Concentration. Mind over matter. Today, the landlady. Tomorrow, the world.
He's mad with power. So what's he gonna do here? All gone. Wow. Did he wipe him out of existence? Like, that's the thing, though. Where do they go? Look at that. All to himself.
All right, let's get going.
Did he make everybody disappear? If that's the case, that kind of sucks. This isn't even going to work if no one's around. Empty street. That was a still image, too.
It'll be just about enough of that.
Did you stop time, too?
Well and good, to be sure.
Well, who'd you do the work for?
How does one occupy his time?
Too much of a good thing?
Who is that? Himself.
Bored to death, aren't you?
Slightly.
Let's just say that I am temporarily somewhat accessible to suggestions as to how to occupy my time.
Loneliness is quite another.
Loneliness, nothing. I despise people.
No, you don't. Yeah, but who's going to keep the world going? Where's all the technicians and construction workers, police officers? Well, you don't need them if you have nobody to police.
You don't have idea one how to occupy your time. People are bad enough, but inactivity is even worse.
I am honestly and truly content for the first time in my life.
Are you, though?
I would like a little diversion of some kind, like an earthquake.
Whoa. Why would you want to do that?
No, not that.
You be more creative?
How about a nice little electrical storm?
How about just a rainstorm? You don't say electrical storm.
Forget it. I believe I've had it for the day.
Bring the people back. You know you want them. Or at least give yourself a companion. A moustache. Immature. And that style's a reflection. Whoa.
Preying on you now, isn't it? The emptiness.
Don't care much for people. It's
Why not get someone?
And I can't stand everyone, or anyone for that matter, breed or a species of human being that I can stomach.
Never cared much for animals either.
Of course. Why didn't I think of it before? People who I can stand, people like myself. But they'll be like me.
Yay. Just like you, huh?
I'll concentrate, and I will that from now on, everyone I see will be like me.
Yeah, but that's going to be boring. Are they all exactly like you? Again, looks and all? No female? All the females look like you? Oh, there's women. Show us the faces. Haven't seen a face yet.
It's not enough they're just a mob, they're a dishonest mob. Kindly deposit 10 cents for the purchase, please.
That's him.
Will you please get off my foot, you ugly little man?
Yeah, this is a bad choice. Everyone's wearing like plastic masks. Plastic mask. It's weird.
There's the miserable noise. I'll go out of my mind. I'll go out of my ever-loving mind. A sty, that's what it is. Nothing but people and
So just everyone complains.
Is there no respite? Is there no relief?
This one's got a mustache.
Will you people stop muttering back there? I'm trying to work.
Coming through to you, huh?
Without a doubt. A lot of me is just as bad as a lot of them.
What's to do now?
Put it back the way it was.
Yeah, it was perfect. Concentrate. Yay!
Oh, Mr. Beechcroft, please, sir, forgive me. I...
Nothing serious, Henry. Forget it.
That book I gave you, did you get anything out of it?
Not really, Henry. I thought it was a lot of pap.
Mr. Archibald Beechcroft, that with all its faults, it may well be that this is the best of all possible worlds. Tonight's case in point, in the Twilight Zone.
Well, that was The Mind and the Matter. Gotta say, it was okay. It wasn't like one of the better episodes of season 2. Very lighthearted. I kind of knew where it was going. It was going to go right back to where it was at the very beginning of the show, where he enjoyed having people around. I mean, everyone does. It's nice to have different company, different points of view. It's not a good thing to have everyone be the same thing or have a world where there's nobody there. I mean, the loneliness can be a bad thing for a lot of people. It's nice to be around other people, but it's not always good to be around people that are exactly like you, especially if you have a personality where it's always negative every time you do anything or talk to anybody. And it looked like he kind of learned his lesson a little bit at the very end. But if you have that kind of mind where you can just concentrate and you can make anything happen, I would probably think a little more outside the box, use my imagination. This guy didn't seem to have one. I mean, when you were able to do anything you ever wanted, he still went to work. I mean, if I was able to do whatever I wanted just by thanking it up, I definitely wouldn't have been going to a 9-to-5 job. But let me know, comment below what you thought of this episode, and I'll go over those comments in next week's episode. Archibald Beechcroft hums the song Alone, written by Nacio Herb Brown and Arthur Freed, introduced in A Night at the Opera, 1935. This episode is sampled in the Circle of Dust song Deviate. The first of 2 episodes with the character named Beechcroft. The other was The Changing of the Guard, 1962. Well, that's it for this episode. Let me know, comment below what you thought of it, and I will go over those comments in next week's episode. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue on this voyage to episode 156 of the episode. Until next time, see you later.